We are fortunate to have someone who has spoken at many of our safety assemblies to rave reviews and has done breakout sessions for the past several years here to rave reviews, where most of the teachers come over and say, everybody needs to hear his presentation. So without further ado, please welcome Brian LaBovick.
Y'all can hear me, right? My voice is usually pretty good at carrying. My name is Brian LaBovick, and I am a trial lawyer, not in recovery yet. So someday I'll retire and I'll be a recovering trial lawyer. That's my law group, that's my law firm, and but just do that, will it change, or do I have to do something in particular?
Hit the space bar.
Hit the space bar, okay. Ta-da! Okay. I've been doing this for more than 20 years, 24 years to be clear. Predominantly what we do a couple of things at the firm, but a very good portion, 60%, 70%, is personal injury work. That includes wrongful death. We have a maritime division, which is a big thing for us. Well, auto accidents are by and large our bread and butter. And car accidents make up a great majority of the significant injuries that people suffer in the state of Florida. And the one question that I think we're here for is kids. So the first thing that I ask people is, when your kids go to get a driver's license, you have to go with them. Does anybody know why you have to sign that little piece of paper that lets them get their temp license or their license? That's right. It's not permission, it's responsibility, right? The reason is because your kids have no money. All right? And the problem is that you kids think you're invincible, right? So we all walk around with a little bit of the Superman complex. We all walk around thinking, I'm not the one who's going to get cancer. I'm not the one who's going to be hit crossing the street. I'm not going to be the one who's in a car accident. I'm not going to be the one who's caught drinking and driving. I can text this one text. I'm not going to be the guy that hits somebody. None of us walk through life believing we're going to be the next person to cause an accident or be the victim of an accident, or else we'd be paralyzed. We'd stay in the house. And I guess there's a few of those agoraphobes in the world, but they're pretty much the minority, right? So the problem is that kids have that more than us adults, because as adults, we've recognized over the scope of our lives with a little bit of wisdom that we are not invincible. I mean, I thought I was invincible when I was a kid, and then I was in a skiing accident and I broke 5 vertebrae. So I learned, I'm not so invincible, you know? People learn that lesson at different times, and unfortunately some of those times are tragic. So every kid is driving distracted. There's not one of them that's not. Every kid is either drinking or smoking or partying or doing whatever they're out there doing. If you don't think your kid's doing it, you're delusional. I'll tell you the story of a kid that I just found out about. I know a young girl. She is either valedictorian or salutatorian at a private high school here in Palm Beach County. She's an all-American athlete. She is a Scripps intern, so she has like a premier internship. She is a rule-following person. Everything about her is rule-following. She has an admission to Yale University next year. When this person was out, she was like, we're not doing anything, don't worry about it, everything's good, no one's doing anything wrong, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, until she was caught with a fake ID out drinking one night. So if that kid's doing it, there's a lot of kids doing it. Now, does that mean that the kids in this generation are hopefully getting the message, hopefully learning a little bit and learning about the give the keys to one kid who's the driver that night, the designated driver? I think it happens more often than it did in my generation, probably your generation. But it doesn't happen often enough. It certainly doesn't happen often enough. And I can attest to that as a matter of personal knowledge, because these people come and see me. They call me. And being involved in this organization has been one of the best experiences of my life in charity, because I get to go in and approach these kids and talk to you kids in your high schools and explain to you the consequences from my side of the aisle. Because I'm not going to talk to you guys about what could happen to you injury-wise, and I'm not here to tell you about the jail sentence, because we've got officers that come and tell you about the time you can spend in jail for doing something that's illegal. I'm here to talk to you about the money, because that's what we do. So what does it mean to be held liable? In other words, responsible for an accident. Who's going to be held liable? What do we owe? What does that entail? How do I prevent it if you can? What if two parents have asked, what if my kid takes my car without permission? I'm away and they're staying with their aunt, they go home, they get the keys out of the drawer, and they take the car. What if they drive my friend's car, and they're driving his car, and I didn't give them permission to drive? What are my options? So let's start with what we owe, all right? Whether it's you personally or you guys as parents, because every time your kid is involved in an accident, complete accident, he was changing the radio station and he bumped somebody from behind. He tried to avoid a cat, he hit the guy next to him. He had a kid in the back seat who was yelling too loud, and he turned around and said, be quiet, and hit somebody. An accident. What do you owe? Because you owe 100% of what they do. And there's no getting out of it if you sign that card giving them permission to drive as their parent. So you will owe what are called compensatory damages. Compensatory damages pay for past and future, pain and suffering, medical bills, lost wages. When you hurt somebody significantly, you're going to pay a lot of money. Pain and suffering drives up millions of dollars of damage. Lost wages, if you hit somebody who's a high wage earner. We've had neurosurgeons as clients. You know how much a neurosurgeon brings in a year in his practice? They're bringing millions of dollars a year. You take a neurosurgeon out of practice for 3 years, it's a $10 million case. Just on lost wages. So just compensatory damages alone, for just doing a regular old accident, just a regular old, I wasn't paying attention, is going to hook you guys for millions of dollars of compensatory damages, and you guys for compensatory damages. Which means that you're going to go ahead and lose a lot of what you got in life. But there's a lot of people in the world who may not have a lot. Or there's a lot of kids in the world who are doing things that are wrong. So what's going on with punitive damages, which is the second level of damages? Now, for punitive damages, I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about drinking and driving. I want to talk about texting and driving. Because drinking and driving, we all know, is against the law. And when you do something that's against the law, you deserve to be punished. And you can be punished criminally, but you will also be punished civilly, which means that me, as the personal injury lawyer, can hold you, as the victim's parents, responsible for the bad acts of your kids. And if you knew of the very bad acts of your kids, I could hold you personally responsible for the punitive damages. Give you an example. Your kid's a nice kid, he's got really nice friends, they come over and they have a party on the back lawn, they're sitting in your back around a fire pit, and you don't know it because they're out there and they're 16, 17 years old, you're not bugging them, and they're drinking beers. And then they leave your party, and they leave the beer cans there, and you see them and you're like, it's a couple of beers, you throw them away, kids will be kids, and one kid gets in an accident on the way home and kills somebody, you're getting punitive damages. You're going to be responsible for the whole thing, and then I'm going to take it down on punitive damages. I'm going to ask for 3 times or more of the compensatory damages. And if it's a drinking case or a drug case, there's no cap on punitive damages in Florida. So if it's $1 million in regular compensatory damages, I can ask for $20 million in punitive damages if it's a punitive case. And we have a punitive case in my kids' community because we have a young boy who's the son of a neurosurgeon who was out drinking on a friend's boat because it's a wealthy family, and he gets in his car and he drives his father's Porsche and kills somebody, and he goes to jail. They take him out of University of Pennsylvania pre-med program, Ivy League, and they put him in jail, and that's where he sits today as we speak here today. And his dad has a problem because there's punitive damages, and his neurosurgeon father is paying off a huge judgment that his kid put on him. The texting law in Florida. There's about 400 articles in Florida about the texting law in Florida being weak. And I think that Irv, if he were here, would agree that it's not what he wanted. He wants a real strict texting law that says if a cop sees you texting, he can pull you over and give you a ticket for it. Which is not what it says now. It says that if a cop sees you texting, he can't pull you over for that, but if you're weaving and texting, he can give you 2 tickets. The beauty of this law is that it made it illegal to text and drive. Which did what for me as an injury lawyer? It dropped the hammer on it, right? Because it dropped it to punitive damages. Which means that I can very legitimately, and have legitimately, gone to a judge and said, Judge, proof of the file indicates that we are going to have a texting charge in this case. The child was breaking the law. He was driving the car while texting. He hit my client. My client has, whatever, $50,000 in damages. I want punitive damages, and I want to get it. I want to put $1 million judgment on his head, punitively. And I'm going to get that, and I'm going to be able to ask a jury for that. And that's where the hammer dropped. And people don't recognize that because no one wrote a newspaper article about it, and no one explained it to the public. That now you guys are on the hook for punitive damages if you hurt somebody while you're texting and driving. So think about it before you do it. Because punitive damages you never get out of your whole life. The compensatory damages, you can go bankrupt. You'll have that bankruptcy stain on your record your whole life, but you can get away from that and rebuild a life and get out of that debt. But the punitive damages are never going away. Which means that if I get a punitive damage against you for $3 million, kids, that in 20 years from now, you're making money at a nice job and you're doing a great thing, and all of a sudden your boss is like, hey, listen, this garnishment just came in. A garnishment is an order from the court that goes to your employer that says take 50% of what this person's earning and send it to Mr. Lawyer down here in Florida. He's going to collect that. And you know how long I'm going to collect that? Probably the rest of your life, because you're never paying off a $3 million judgment with interest rolling at 12% by the time you start paying it. So what do you lose? You lose everything, because even if you're doing well, I'm going to come out and I'm going to take a deposition in aid of execution. A deposition in aid of execution is done after you get a judgment. And you go and you talk to the person that owes you the money. And you say, what do you have? And they lie to you. And they tell you, we got nothing. I don't own a thing. I said, well, you got keys there. Let's talk about your keys. And we talk about the key. They got a key for the shed. The shed has a lawnmower. They also have 2 cars. They also have some stuff in their garage. They have furniture in their house. And I want everything. And I'm going to take everything, and I'm going to give it to the sheriff, and he's going to sell it on the auction block. And whatever he gets for it, $12 or $1,200, is going to go toward me and my client, and we're going to take it. And you know how much it's going to pay off of your $3 million judgment? Losing everything? Like almost nothing. The interest maybe for 1 year. Great. So you paid off 1 year of interest, and then you start rebuilding your life again, and 3 years later I come and I do it again. If you own a purebred dog, I'll take it and I'll sell it, because I'll get $1,200 or $300 for it. And I'll give that money to my client. You want to see how many people come up with real money to save their purebred dog because they love the dog? It's amazing how people that got nothing come up with thousands of dollars. You know, I'm taking the dog next Tuesday. Sheriff's coming to pick him up. We're selling him at auction. What do you mean you're taking the dog? You're a human. That's crazy. I'm like, well, you could buy the dog for me before we sell him at auction. Do you have any money? Well, I'll borrow money. Who are you borrowing from? My dad. All right, borrow $10,000 from your dad. You can save the dog. Fine, I won't take the dog. Give my client the $10,000. Now you owe your dad $10,000 to save the dog. Don't get another dog. How many people are scared to have their kids drive their car right now? How many big questions in just 1 second? 16 to 18. 16 to 18. However, it's a good question. The question was, what are the ages of kids? I'll take questions, because really, we did this last year, and I think everybody sat there with their mouths open like, oh my God, can this really happen to me? It was only adults, I didn't have kids in the room at the time. And I was like, yeah, it really can happen to you. And so then the question period really became the best part of it. But I wanted to get through, and so I probably moved a little rapidly for some people. And then I wanted to talk about how to present it. So first question that came out is, how old are the kids? Your kids 16 to 18, you're signing permission for them. You got to remove yourself from that when they turn 18, and you got to never have them drive anything you own from that point forward. If they're driving your car, you're responsible for it. So you have to buy them their own car, put it in their own names, and have them not live in your house if you want to get out of it. Never happens. Everybody keeps their kids on their insurance, on everything. It's all good until they're 23 years old, and between 16 and 23, you're going to be responsible. In the back.
Yes, can you explain the affluenza situation?
Affluenza, the kid who's going to rehab instead of to jail when he's known for. Nobody's ever heard of affluenza before, though.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't explain it. I'm sorry. I wish I could explain it, but I can't. It's an injustice. Okay, so can you, give me one second. Can you access this? Afterwards, if you give me your email, I'll give you my presentation and I'll email it to you. It's just a simple PowerPoint, yeah.
Explain that if they're caught under the influence, insurance company has a clause that will not pay liability.
Yes. So it's actually broader than that. Insurance pays for accidents, for negligence, right? What they don't like to pay for is criminal acts. So if you are caught or engaged in a criminal act, or you are doing something malfeasant and intentionally malfeasant, you are not going to get the benefit of your insurance. An insurance company doesn't insure against malfeasant acts. In other words, when you do something bad. Drinking and driving is one of those acts. Texting and driving is not yet one of those acts. I will bet you that in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, the insurance companies adapt and say, if you are texting and driving and cause an accident, we will not provide you the coverage. So the first point of what you can do will be taken out if you're drinking and driving, and in the future, possibly texting and driving. Right now, you can't insure against texting and driving. Next question. All right. So what can you do to try to avoid it? What people hate to pay for in life is insurance. They get insurance, and their insurance company or agent tells them you got full coverage. You know what full coverage is in Florida? Full coverage is personal injury protection, which pays for $10,000 of your own injury, no matter who is at fault. That's why we have a no-fault state. Everybody knows that we are a no-fault state?
Yes.
What does that mean? All that means, the only thing that means, is that no matter who is at fault in an accident, the first $10,000 of your bills are covered by your own insurance, no matter who is at fault. And that goes so far as to everybody in your household who doesn't own a car, any of your resident relatives. And if you are not with a resident relative, then the car that you're driving will cover you. So if you don't own a car and you're not a resident relative that you can get, then you can get the car. So the intent of the PIP insurance is to get you $10,000 of medical bills, right? Paid, or $10,000 of lost wages paid at 60%, or $5,000 of death benefits. That's it. That's all no-fault means. Beyond that is very, very minor. So don't worry about the rest of that. Just know that it's not a no-fault, or you're not getting sued for anything. You're getting sued. All right? All right, so that's the one thing. That doesn't help you avoid being sued, right, in any way, shape, or form. The other thing is property damage. You got to have $10,000 to pay for the other guy's car, mailbox, radio, Walkman, or if we have Walkman, iPods, you know, whatever it is, right? I hate myself. So, does anybody have the VCR? I got to plug something. So that's all it covers. So if your agent says you got full coverage, you probably got bupkis for coverage. What you need to have in coverage is called bodily injury liability insurance. Bodily injury liability covers you from getting sued if you or anybody driving your car hurts somebody else. And if you want the flip side of that, you can get something called uninsured or underinsured motorist insurance. And that covers you if somebody hurts you and they turn out to be uninsured, which happens quite a bit here in Florida. So those are the two insurances you want to think about, and you want to insure against it. Now, you're going to want to call your homeowner's insurance to get on top of that, because you got to get your auto to go to a certain amount, usually $250, $500, $250 for every accident, $500,000 for the total of an accident. You guys understand how insurance works? When you look at bodily injury insurance, you say, how much coverage do I have? If I get hit, how much are you going to pay? They say $250 per person, $500,000 per accident. So if there's 6 people that get hurt, $500 grand is all that they're going to pay for everybody. So everybody will get some portion of that and they'll divvy it up. $250 is the most any one single person can get. Once you get to a threshold, usually $250, $500, some of it's $500, $1 million, you can get umbrella coverage from your home. You need to call your homeowners, you need to say, I want an umbrella coverage policy. They're not that expensive. They're usually $1, $2, $3, $4 million. And you can buy that on top. So you get your auto up as high as you can BI, and you get your homeowners up so that you get double coverage. By doing that, you're going to ensure that you're not going to get sued and hurt badly, if you're lucky, as long as your kid's not drinking and driving. If your kid's drinking and driving, he's going to be stuck with it. Your insurance will cover you because it was use of a car, your negligence in letting him use a car. It's not a malfeasant act. So there's some dispute on that legally, but we can usually get the policies to pick up for parents that are the victims of their kids hurting somebody.
Umbrella coverage, If you're renting, can you get umbrella coverage, or that's only for?
If you're leasing, are you leasing or renting a car?
Renting, no, not a car, a home.
A home?
Yeah, if you're not a homeowner, if you're a renter.
I've never had anybody ask me that question. I think you can, I'll bet you can, but I don't know why you couldn't, but I think. Anybody an insurance agent here that won't sell the rental? No, sorry, no takers. I'll call my Allstate agent and I'll ask. So one is try to do that. Number two, the kids who attend the Dori Slosberg events, if they have it at your school, walk away and we get lots of great comments about it. And I get commentary that goes weeks and weeks because I talk to them about this and I tell them, I'm going to put it on you, I'm going to take your dog, I'm taking everything your dad has, I'm taking your college fund, I'm taking his retirement account, I'm taking everything your dad's ever worked for in his whole life for you because you made a mistake. So don't make the mistake. It's on you because it's a personal decision. When you get in that car, you make the decision. I can do it, I can drive. And if you can't, don't do it. And if you text, you decided to text. It's on you. So we put it on them, and they walk away from it a little inoculated, I think. And I think that's the best that we can do is just give them a little inoculation. I think that my thing, telling them about it, inoculates them a little because it hits them in their pocketbook. I think that, you know, everybody else who does this with me, the sheriff talks about how you can go to jail, the St. Mary's trauma nurse talks about what can happen to you physically and what you can do to other people physically, so you see that tragedy. I think this video is going to scare the living daylights out of them. I remember when we were young, anybody remember Scared Straight? Right? This is Scared Straight for driving, right? So we love that. And then third, you know, teach them what you learned here today. This is kind of a mini what we do at the Slosberg Foundation speeches that we do with the kids. And then have them sign a contract. So this is new. I don't even think Kara knows that but I know that we've had this Don't Text and Drive contract. But I just read this book, Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. Ariely is at Duke now. He was an MIT professor for a long time. He's a behavioral psychologist and economist. He's a brilliant, brilliant guy. And he talks about how behavior, human behavior, is unpredictable. The only thing predictable is that we're irrational. We do things irrationally, right? So he talked about, and he had lots of things. Like we talked about coming down here, Darren's reading the book now. So we were talking about pricing. He works in Darren gives away. We don't make all the men shave their heads, don't worry.
You get a signing bonus though, so.
That's right, signing bonus. So it talks about like how to price things, relative pricing, how people behave when they're looking at relative pricing. But it also talked about dishonesty. And it talked about how human beings, by nature, have a little bit of dishonesty, but they are not completely dishonest. So what happens is that when they sign a contract, when you put it in front of them and you ask them to sign something, it increases the validity of that admitted behavior. So if they say, I will not text and drive, I will not drink and drive, they may or they may not, right? They might be a little bit, I drank a little bit. But if they sign a contract saying they won't, and they hear the speech about what could happen, and they know that they can go to jail, and they see that video, and they hear me talk or you tell them about how we can, as a family, you affect everybody. Everybody is relying on you to behave this way. Everybody in our family. Then, and sign a contract, they will be much, much more inoculated to doing the bad behavior. And so I think that what I'm going to try this in my own family. I'm hoping that it works. I think that it will work. I think looking at the book, reading it, and seeing how kids react to this, and there's a ton of studies about that if we do have them sign on to these things, we're going to get a lot more better behavior and more designated drivers driving for our kids. And then I think we have to give them some viable options. So you have to talk to them. You have to say, you know, you can drive without sending a text or receiving a text. You can turn your phone off while you're driving, turn it on silent, don't pick it up until you're done. You can do that. So let's talk about that. Do you have the ability to turn your phone off, put it on in the glove box, put it in the middle thing so you can't get to it. Just put it away while you're driving, right? You can call or text people before your parents and say, okay, mom, dad, Joe, you know, buddy, girlfriend, I'm on my way, just got in the car, I'll text you when I get there. But between those 2 points, I'm not going to text and drive and I'm turning my phone off. So give them the solution, right? You can always pull over. Gosh, you're halfway there. I'm running late. I want my dad to know that I'm running late. Pull over. Even if you're on the highway, it takes less than a minute to get off the highway, park in a gas station parking lot, send a text, get back on the thing, jump back on the highway, and 64 seconds later, you're going in the same direction and everybody knows you're safe and you've done it safely. So give them the options. Or deputize passive. Say, listen, here's my phone. You're the man. I'll tell you what to do. You don't have to pay attention to the road. And be that person that takes the calls, does the texts. Like, talk to them about that. Give them those solutions so that they think about it. So it's not like, I got to do it, you know, like. And it's a personality style, too. There's a lot of kids that have a very dominant personality style. So they're like in their teens, and they're getting this high dominant thing. So talk to especially guys. Say, listen, you gotta fight that. You gotta give it to your buddy, and you gotta tell him what to do. Like, you're the boss, you tell him what to do. Turn it off. Make sure that it's, you know, not going to distract you while you're driving. Talk to them about waiting to text until they've stopped driving. I guess some of these are a little repetitive. Stop texting. End of phone conversation. If you call somebody and you know that they're driving. So you're on the phone, you're sitting in your house, you're like, hey, Bob. And he's like, hey, what's going on? You're like, hey, you sound like you're in your car. Yeah, I'm driving to Jane's house. All right, listen, give me a call. Sorry. Give me a call when you get there, and I'm getting off the phone now. Teach your kids, you know. I was sitting at a red light the other day, and a phone call came in, right? So I picked up my phone sitting at a red light, and I talked to my friend Sean, who's also an injury lawyer. And I said, hey, dude, what's going on? He goes, hey, where are you going? I said, I'm driving to so-and-so. He goes, all right, well, call me when you get there. We're not going to talk and drive. And he hung up. That was my conversation with my friend yesterday, so I had to call him when I went back. But it was great, and I thought, dovetails perfectly to what I'm doing. Or pull over and safe location and wait until I'm finished up to eat or drive or do makeup or whatever it is. Pulling over to do, even changing CDs in your car. Some kids think that it's okay to reach into their glove box, look through their CD case, take the CD out of the CD player. Maybe they don't anymore. Maybe the iPod does it all. But, you know, checking an iPod to get to the next musical selection is distracted driving. So recognize it. Set the iPod on whatever Pandora channel you want and let it go before you start driving and be done. Don't play with the smart device. And if you are being driven by a distracted driver, teach your kids. Say, listen, if the guy's driving the car distracted, tell him, give me the phone. Put down the phone. Stop driving like a jerk. Don't do this. I'm in the car with you. I want to be safe. I want you to be safe. I want all those people that were driving by to be safe. Speak up. Speak up when you see something. Say something, right? So if we talk to our kids about these things, I think that they'll be more apt to do it. Share the responsibility. Teach your kids to be responsible drivers. Don't drink, don't eat, don't horse around in the car. Don't text and drive for sure. LaBovick Law Group. Thank you guys. If there's any other questions, are you moving on? Because I know that sometimes, you know, you're like, moving on, baby. Or do you want questions? Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
I think you should ask Annie to come to your video because he's scary. I think that's, you know, they talk about kids.
Thank you, thank you. A lot of people say scary, but I like Eric. He says it right. So, anybody else? Any of you kids out there, like, did this sink in at all? You get it? That you can really ruin everything that your family's done forever? Please, let that happen. All right. All right, good.
Yes, definitely going to middle school next. They're starting. Okay, before we part.
Wait, I just want to say one more thing. Sure. If you guys have a kid and you're like, you don't believe me, call this guy. Call me personally. I'll give you my cell number. You can call me. I will be happy to talk to your kid. I'll be happy to meet with your kid. If I can do anything to stop these kids from
scare your kid
themselves, I will scare the daylights out of them. Just get my whatever I don't do.